What's up, guys? This is Hyce, and welcome to a special and perhaps one-off edition of a Hyce Reacts film. And that is to talk about the 1983 pilot of Thomas and Friends coming back out. We've not talked about Thomas the Tank Engine on the channel before for a number of reasons that we'll get into after the reaction, because I think it's going to be a little fun for me to revisit a little bit of what I experienced in my childhood, and I think you guys might enjoy it alongside me. So let's go take a look, shall we?
One day, Thomas was at the junction when Gordon shuffled in with some trucks. "Phew," remarked Thomas. "What a funny smell." "Can you smell a smell?" "I can't smell a smell," said Annie. "A funny, musty sort of smell," said Thomas. "No one noticed it till you did," grunted Gordon. "It must be yours." "Annie, Clarabelle, do you know what I think it is? It's ditch water." Before Gordon could answer, Thomas puffed away. Annie and Clarabelle could hardly believe their ears. Thomas left the coaches at the station and went off to a mine for some trucks. Long ago, miners digging for lead had made tunnels under the ground. Though strong enough to hold up trucks, their roofs could not bear the weight of engines. Silly old board, he thought. He had often tried to pass it and he had never succeeded. But this morning he had made a plan. He had to push the empty trucks into one siding and pull out full ones from another. "Come on," waved the fireman. The driver leaned out of the cab to see where they were going. "Now," said Thomas to himself. "Hurrah," laughed Thomas, and he followed the trucks into the siding. "Stupid old board," said Thomas. "There's no danger, there's no danger." "Look out," shouted his driver. "Come back." "Fire and smoke," said Thomas. "I'm sunk." And he was. Thomas could just see out of the hole, but he couldn't move. "Oh dear," he said, "I am a silly engine. And a very naughty one, too." "I saw you," said the fat controller. "Please get me out. I won't be naughty again." "I'm not sure," replied the fat controller. "We can't lift you out with the crane. The ground's not firm enough." Let me see. I wonder if Gordon could pull you out." "Yes, sir," said Thomas nervously, but he didn't really want to meet Gordon just yet. "Down a mine, is he? Ho, ho, ho," laughed Gordon. "What a jokey chortle, puffing to the rescue. Poof, poof, little Thomas, we'll have you out in a couple of puffs." Strong cables were fastened between the two engines. "Are you ready?" "Heave," called the fat controller. It was a lot harder than they all thought. But at last he was free.
Poomph!
"I'm sorry I was cheeky," said Thomas. "That's all right, Thomas. You made me laugh."
Just trying to avoid copyright strikes, otherwise I'd let the whole theme play it, because the Thomas and Friends theme is excellent, and there are excellent music theories of videos about it. If you have not watched them, you should go watch them, because that theme is excellent, and the composers that wrote it are on YouTube, and they're hip to those videos as well, which is amazing to think of. Goodness, that was quite fun to watch as a YouTube video, looking back on things from childhood. Goodness. Where do we even begin? I think we begin with, it was very cool and nostalgic and exciting for me to hear Ringo's voice telling the story, though I typically grew up with George Carlin doing the same, and I have to think that George Carlin was actually doing it just so that he knew that the silly posts of him being edited in would be done because of his comedy. Hearing Ringo and seeing Thomas and seeing Gordon and seeing the thing, most recently in my life, I've heard so much from my friends who really grew up with this stuff and really loved it and always loved it, talked about and learned about all of the things, and learned about how the original series was made. And they love how the original series was made. I'm talking about Leighton, Brett, Jeff, many others. Leighton is building an O-scale modular railway that is all, modular 2-rail O, all with certain engines that look just like these engines, but without faces, and, living the dream, and God bless him for doing so. That's fantastic. He's living his childhood dream that is excellent. And I'm so happy. And when you look into how this show was done, like, go watch some of Unlucky Tug's videos. I'm glad he's back on YouTube. He had an issue with his YouTube account, and he's back, and he's here, and he's posting videos. He posted probably a better video than I'm reacting to about this whole situation than I did. But he's kind of the Thomas the Tank Engine guy in terms of the whole universe and all the stuff and the characters and everything. And I remember growing up and watching Shining Time Station with my dad. I remember those moments, 8:44 in the intro, the whole thing, and the two of us together, and it was something special. And Thomas the Tank Engine was usually something that would come on afterwards, and we'd watch an episode of the show. And it was such a brilliant show, extremely well written, extremely well choreographed, as I said. My friends, knowing that the way that the models worked out, they did such a cool thing, making model trains of quite a large size look like the real thing. But the reason I don't talk about it on the channel is that it just doesn't really bring me any joy. I know a lot of you guys really love the series, the Railway series, Thomas the Tank Engine, everything. I get comments about it all the time, and I love that. I'm excited that you're excited. But for me, it doesn't bring happiness. I didn't have good experiences with it. For me, in my memory, I remember classmates of mine in the young age when everyone was being awful and evil and bullying and all of the manner of things. Thomas equaled train. So train, Thomas, whatever, it didn't matter what it was. If it was a train, it was Thomas, and you were stupid or retarded. I hate saying that word, but that was the word I was called for liking something that was train, for anything that was, not in the realm of things at the time. And this was after my granddad had passed away, who made the sound systems we've talked about before. And to me, the most important trains were the real trains. I'd grown up on through 46, but the real trains, the Colorado narrow gauge. That was so cool. How could my 5 and 6-year-old compatriots not understand how cool these trains were? And back then I couldn't understand. These days I could understand how they couldn't understand, but they conflate every one of those things. Train, it's major media, it's train, therefore it's Thomas. So I got used to being called a dumb Thomas kid and everything, despite not liking Thomas, liking stupid rear grand narrow gauge, as I always have. And that was really hard to process as a little kid. Like, what are you gonna do, So the reason why we don't really talk about Thomas on the channels pretty personal. People conflated all of my love for the narrow gauge with Thomas, and it's a great series. And the way it was done originally is fantastic, and I don't want to discredit that, and I don't want to make it not seem important. But to me, the whole thing was something that really kind of just eroded away what I cared for by just about everyone I knew. And that sucked. And I'm sure many people have felt that way too. Yeah. Anyways, guys, if you liked this video, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Hope you learned something about me. Maybe you learned something about you. Maybe you resonated with my experience. It's unfortunate. If you did, let me know. You're not the only one, and you're important. So, as always, catch y'all next time.